In this demo, we are going to see what MCP is and how you can consume an MCP server and a set of tools made available through an MCP server in Copilot Studio. This is a demo based on a lab that is available on the Copilot Dev Camp. So I will also give you additional information about the Copilot Dev Camp itself. I'm Paolo Pialorsi. I'm a senior developer advocate in Microsoft. And now let's move to the actual content. So first of all, let's have a look at what MCP is. So MCP, Model Context Protocol, that's the acronym, is an open source standard that we can use to connect AI solutions, AI applications to external systems. And the great idea of MCP is that it is almost like a plug, a universal plug that we can use to plug an agent or an AI platform and system with and into another external system to get information, functionalities, resources, and stuff like that. And a really nice metaphor that you can find on the web is that MCP for AI is like a USB-C connector for a smartphone nowadays. And when you use MCP, you can get help to do more in an easy way, because you will simply need to inspect the list of tools, resources, and prompts available through the MCP server. And as a developer or as a designer of an agent, you will be able to easily consume those functionalities. How is it possible? So let me explain you briefly the architecture of MCP. So in the world of MCP, and in the middle of the screen, you see the logo of MCP, which was introduced as an open source effort by a company called Anthropic. MCP is based on the idea of having an MCP server, which will be consumed by an MCP host through an MCP client. Now, the MCP host is the application that actually relies on the MCP client to consume an MCP server. The MCP client is where we have the intelligence and the knowledge about what the MCP server offers, because the MCP client is the one in charge of discovering the capabilities provided by the server and connecting to the server. It will also handle the communication, the one-to-one communication with the server, and it will be able to invoke the tools, query the resources, and discover all of the prompts available. Why am I saying tools, resources, and prompts? Well, because on the MCP server side, every MCP server will be able to make available tools, which is something like a set of functions or functionalities that we can trigger on the MCP server. The resources, which are data sources that we can access with a read-only mode, and prompts, which help the host and the LLM, which is running inside the host, to write prompts to consume the MCP server tools and resources. So when we have an MCP host coupled with an LLM or an orchestrator, we can then easily use the description of all of the tools, resources, and prompts to understand the user intent and to invoke the right tool for the prompt provided by the user. Under the cover, on the wire, let me say that, on the wire, we have transport and security. So when the MCP client consumes an MCP server, we can have the standard I/O local transport or the streamable HTTP transport when we run across different locations on the internet. So we have the MCP server hosted on the internet, and we have the consumer running on another environment. The protocol under the cover is the JSON RPC 2.0, and we can have anonymous access, API key-based access, or open authorization access when it comes to security. So that said, let me move to the demo. Let me show you what we have in the lab inside the Copilot Camp. So in order to do that, first of all, I'm going to show you the Copilot Camp homepage. And in there, if you go into the maker pathway, you can find the lab number 6, which is consuming an MCP server. And that's precisely what we're going to do right now in this demo. And if you want to do that on your own machine, just go here and have fun with this lab on your own environment. Now, what I'm going to do in this lab is to show you that we have an MCP server that we defined, and you can find the whole source code of this MCP server, which has been built using .NET 8. So again, if you are a developer, you can also dig into how to create your own MCP server. You simply need to open the lab, and following the instructions, you will be able to download the whole source code of the MCP server from GitHub. This MCP server simply provides an hypothetical set of tools for handling yet another hypothetical list of candidates. So here we have a list of candidates stored in a JSON file, and we have a candidate service which will simply provide a set of tools, a set of functionalities to add a new candidate, to update a candidate, to delete a candidate, or to list or search for specific candidates. And from the MCP point of view, we simply have this HR tools file where you can find the implementation of all of the tools that we provide. So the tool to add a new candidate, the tool to update, remove, and search for candidates. So now let me run this .NET project just for the sake of consuming it locally. And let me also create a couple of additional terminal windows, and that's what you are going to do also in the lab in the Copilot camp. One will be used to trigger a dev tunnel that you will need to register, and you will find all of the instructions to do so in the lab. Now I'm going to host a dev tunnel so that even if my MCP server is running locally on my machine on localhost, I will be able to have a public endpoint to consume this MCP server from Copilot Studio. And then I can, for example, show you how this MCP server works using a really useful tool, which is called the MCP inspector. So let me start this tool as well, which will be hosted in the browser. And then by simply using the URL of my MCP server, and here we are, this is the MCP inspector, I can get from the previous terminal window, the one with the dev tunnel, I can get the URL of my dev tunnel, and I can simply provide that URL in the MCP inspector so that I can connect to the remote MCP server, which is actually my MCP server running on localhost, but doesn't matter, we are using the dev tunnel. I can list all of the tools available, and you can see here I have, for example, a list candidates tool. I can run the tool, and I can retrieve the list of candidate that I have in my actual JSON file, but it could be a SQL Azure database or whatever else you like, okay? This is just for the sake of simplicity. Now, let's say that we want to consume this MCP server and the tools provided by this MCP server within Copilot Studio, so that then we can use an agent in Microsoft 365 Copilot to interact with this MCP server. So let me switch to Copilot Studio, and let me create a new agent. I can create a new agent from scratch, and I can say, for example, that this will be the HR community agent, which is the one I'm going to create right now for this community demo. You help managing candidates will be my brief description, and you simply, the instructions will simply be help the user to handle or to manage the candidates for HR. This, of course, should be a better looking set of instructions, but right now, for the sake of this demo and for the sake of saving some time, I'm just providing a really short set of instructions. So let me create this agent now. And what I'm going to do is that once it is ready, I will be able to add the connection to my MCP server. So how can I do that? Well, I can select the Tools tab right here, and I can add a tool. In order to add a tool, you can select and filter the available tools using this filtering panel. And here we can already see that we have a bunch of ready-to-go MCP servers available, or you can create a new one. So I will select new tool, and I will select the model context protocol. By doing that, I can now provide a name for my MCP server for the connection that I'm going to create targeting my MCP server. And the name could be HR MCP community, just for the sake of it. And the server descriptions handles HR candidates, or whatever else. And then I need to provide the URL of my MCP server. So I'm lazy, so I will copy and paste it from the MCP inspector. This is the URL of my dev tunnel. I'm not going to use authentication right now. In the near future, we are also going to release new labs with authentication in place. Right now, I'm going through anonymous access. And once I will be ready with the model context protocol connection configured, I will need to actually connect to the target server, MCP server, and I will be able to play with my MCP list of tools. Takes a while, and now you can see I have my HR MCP community, and I can connect, creating a new connection to that specific server. And soon you will understand why I need to connect and go through these steps. And now that I'm done, I can simply add it to the agent. So now that I've done that, as soon as it will be ready, we can see that we have the MCP set of tools available right here. So I can select this new tool that I have. And actually, this is a connection to the whole MCP server. And right here, we can see all of the tools which are made available by the MCP server. And you can recognize that this is exactly the same list of tools that we have got when I trigger the list tools in the MCP inspector. So now what can I do? Well, the interesting part is that now my agent in Copilot Studio will be the host, where we have the MCP client, and the MCP client was able to retrieve all of the tools available with their description. And now the LLM based and the orchestrator based on the prompt provided by the user will be able to understand the intent of the user. And if the intent of the user targets any of the tools that we have available through this MCP server, those tools will be triggered by the agent. So let me give you an example. For example, I can say, okay, that I want to see what's going on. So I want to see the activity map, and I want to list all the candidates. By doing so, I will trigger the connection to the external MCP server. And as such, I need to create an actual connection for my current user session. So I need to select Open Connection Manager. By doing that, I can connect to the target MCP server from the end user perspective, the user who is testing the agent in the local testing environment. I can confirm that I want to connect. And back to Copilot Studio, I can retry the request. And as you will see right here, we see that now the agent in Copilot Studio is relying on the model context protocol and on the HR MCP community MCP server to retrieve the list of candidates. And here we can see all of them. But we can also see, because now we are in Copilot Studio in the testing environment, that we have also access to the JSON response that we have got back from the list candidate tool in the MCP server. If you want to use this technology also in an agent, let me switch back to the list of agents and let me go back to the HR community agent so that I will be able to publish this agent. And I also will be able to select in the channels that I want to make this agent available in Microsoft 365 Copilot Chat. It's a matter of a few seconds to wait for the publishing to complete. And hopefully it will be quick enough to let me show you also the agent running in Microsoft 365 Copilot Chat. So let me switch to channels. And here I can select Teams and Microsoft 365 Copilot. I want to make this agent available also in the Microsoft 365 Copilot. So let me add this channel. And once it will be ready, I can publish it again, and I can open my agent in the Copilot Chat. So few more seconds of waiting. So let me publish it one more time so that now we have all of the information about the channel that I enabled. And once the publishing will be done, I can go back to the channel, and in there, I will have a easy-to-use link to open my agent in Copilot Chat. So back to the channel. And here I have See Agent in Microsoft 365. Select this link. And as you can see now, I'm in the Microsoft 365 .cloud.microsoft web application. I can add my agent to the target Copilot Chat. Every now and then it takes a while. So even if you will play with the lab on your own environment and it will fail by selecting add, don't go crazy. just wait a few more minutes and come back. Now I'm crossing my fingers. Hopefully now it will work straight to the Copilot chat, but we don't know. Okay, looks like it is working as expected. Wonderful. So here I have my HR community agent, and here I can say, as before, list all candidates. And now I'm again going to trigger the MCP server and to invoke the tool to list all of the candidates. And as before, we need to connect because now I'm in a different user context. So let me open the connection manager one more time. Let me connect to the target server. And now that I'm connected, I can go back here and retry with my request. And I will be able to retrieve the list of candidates under the cover as before in the testing interface of Copilot Studio. So as you have seen, it is really easy and simple to consume an MCP server from Copilot Studio, especially now that the user interface has been improved. And now you can simply do all of the configuration from within the Copilot Studio interface. Under the cover, when you register an MCP server in the environment where you are, you can find that there is a new custom connector which will be created for you by Copilot Studio. So in case you want to delete it later on, you want to edit, you want to do whatever else, you can come here in the custom connectors of your Power Platform environment, in the environment where you designed your agent, and you can eventually tackle the MCP server from here, okay, just for your own knowledge. So now let me go back to the slide deck, and just to give you a couple of additional information. As I said, this demo comes from a lab of the Copilot Camp, which is a set of workshops and training material for makers and developers, and this is the URL. You can already find it in the chat. There we have plenty of options depending on who you are and what you want to do. I don't want to go through all of the branches of this diagram, but you will find it on the homepage of the Copilot Camp. Follow the path that better suits for your needs. And that's it. These are some useful links that you can also find in the chat. And thank you.